It's 2:13 a.m., and a clip is moving through group chats faster than any courtroom document ever could. Not a press conference, not a leaked source says paragraph, a short, shaky piece of footage that people are calling the first real look at Diddy's prison reality. And the reason it's hitting so hard is because it completely clashes with the story that's been floating online for weeks, the story that he's comfortable, that he's running the unit, that he's still the boss behind bars. But the new footage being circulated paints a different picture. A man who looks tense, cautious, and scared. And when 50 Cent's name gets attached to something like this, whether it's a direct leak, a tip to outlets, or someone in his circle pushing it, the internet doesn't watch quietly. It hunts, it rewinds, it zooms in. And the most dangerous part isn't even what people think they saw in the clip, it's what they think it implies. Now here's what's strange. The clip that's circulating isn't long. That's the point. Short clips don't give context. They create obsession. They make you fill in the blanks. And the rumors filled those blanks immediately. He's being targeted. He's being pressed. He's not safe. Then the next layer got uglier. People started connecting the fear in the footage to something far older than his current case. Old hip-hop wounds, old names, old grief. You've already seen it in comments. Tupac, Biggie, Brooklyn, Vegas. People throwing those names around like they're puzzle pieces, like prison politics runs on YouTube theories. And that's exactly how misinformation becomes a weapon inside a real-world situation. But let's slow down and be smart. There are two separate stories happening at once. One is the footage itself, what it shows, what it doesn't, why it's spreading. The second is the narrative being built around it, why certain people want the public to believe Diddy is either untouchable or in danger. And if you understand that, you understand why this moment matters. Because if Diddy looks shaken in prison, that isn't just embarrassing. In the prison world, image is currency. If the public sees fear, the unit sees weakness. If the unit sees weakness, people test you. And if people test you, staff reacts. Classification changes. Housing changes. Restrictions tighten. Even without any new charges, your day-to-day reality can flip overnight. That's why clips like this are so explosive. Not because they prove a crime, but because they can change the environment around a person instantly. So what exactly are people claiming the footage shows? The accounts pushing it describe a tense moment, Diddy moving carefully, scanning, not talking, not performing. Some say he looks like he's trying to avoid someone. Others claim it's the aftermath of a confrontation. And then you have the second group, the ones saying the clip is being clipped on purpose, that it's edited down to create a specific feeling, fear, that it's being packaged the same way viral stories always are, a short clip plus a powerful caption. And once that happens, the internet does what it always does. It picks a villain, it picks a reason, it picks a storyline, which leads to the wildest part, the why. Because the why people are pushing is not small. They're not saying it's random prison drama. They're saying it's connected to old ghost people who still believe Diddy had something to do with Tupac or Biggie or both. Now, to be clear, Diddy has denied any involvement for years, and public law enforcement statements have also said he hasn't been considered a suspect in Tupac's homicide investigation. But online, denial doesn't end a theory, it feeds it. And in prison culture, rumors don't need to be true to be dangerous. They just need to be believed by the wrong person. That's why this prison reality angle hits harder than a normal celebrity scandal. Because it's not just what happened, it's what happens next. If the wrong narrative spreads, it can create real pressure. If the right narrative spreads, it can create protection. And right now, both sides are fighting to control the same story. Before we go deeper, comment one thing right now. Do you think this footage is real, or is it being used to push a narrative? And if you want updates like this the moment they break, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is moving in real time, and every new detail changes the entire angle. Here's the part most people miss. Even if the clip is real, it doesn't automatically mean Diddy is being attacked. It could mean he's being isolated. It could mean he's under tighter control. It could mean staff is moving him differently because of heightened attention. High-profile inmates often get handled in ways that look suspicious on camera, but are actually standard protocol. No one wants an incident. No one wants headlines. So they minimize contact. They minimize movement. They keep things quiet. Quiet looks like fear when you don't know the rules. But then why is 50 Cent being brought into this? Because his brand is pressure. He doesn't just comment, he pokes, he amplifies. He turns stories into public spectacle. And when people believe he's involved, they also believe the leak isn't accidental. They believe it's strategy. They believe it's meant to force the world to see something Diddy's side would never show: vulnerability. And if you're a viewer, that's addictive because it feels like truth. It feels like, finally, the mask is off. But truth and feeling are not the same thing. Viral clips are designed to make you feel like you witnessed something important, even when you only saw 17 seconds of a longer reality. So let's talk about what this kind of footage can actually do in the real world. First, it creates security concerns. If a clip shows a hallway, a routine, a staff pattern, that's a problem. Prisons don't want their internal flow exposed. Second, it can trigger investigations into who recorded it and how it got out. Was it a contraband phone? Was it a visitor? Was it staff corruption? Third, and this is the big one, it can change an inmate's custody conditions, not as punishment for the content itself, but as a response to the chaos it causes. And that's why this story is not just gossip, it's a live pressure test. Because here's what happens after a leak goes viral. Everyone starts acting like they know the ending. They don't. The footage becomes the beginning of a new chapter. And the next chapter depends on what the system believes is happening behind the scenes. And now we need to look at the other narrative being pushed alongside the footage. The idea that Diddy's comfortable prison life was a lie, and that people have been waiting to see him humbled. We also need to break down why old names like Tupac and Biggie keep getting pulled into modern headlines and how that can be used to shape public perception in a way that's powerful, risky, and sometimes reckless. Because once the internet decides a story is connected, it starts writing facts that were never proven. And when enough people repeat them, they stop sounding like rumors. They start sounding like history. And that's when a viral clip becomes something bigger than a clip. The footage is only the spark. The narrative is the fire. And right now, the fire is spreading. And the reason this footage is dominating timelines isn't just because it shows a moment, it's because it challenges a myth. For weeks, the myth was simple. Diddy is still Diddy, even inside. People were saying he's living smooth, eating better, talking business, giving advice, acting like the unit is his boardroom. That story does two things. It keeps his image strong, and it annoys everyone who wants him to face consequences. So when a clip hits that makes him look nervous, the internet treats it like proof that the myth was fake. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Prison myths are almost always created by outsiders. People who have never seen a real facility love to imagine that money buys comfort everywhere. And yes, status can change certain things: legal access, private calls, safer placements. But it doesn't erase the most basic rule. In prison, attention can be a danger. And Diddy's name is attention on the highest level. So when people see him looking over his shoulder, they instantly build a storyline. He's being targeted. They say it like they're reporting it. But targeting can mean 100 things. It can mean threats. It can mean extortion attempts. It can mean inmates trying to test him for clout. It can mean people saying his name just to make noise. And sometimes it can mean staff increasing control because they know the facility is under a microscope. This is where the prison reality conversation gets real. Because a high-profile inmate isn't dealing with just one environment. He's dealing with three at the same time: the prison, the media, and the public. Each one creates pressure, and when those pressures meet, the weird things happen. Now let's address the most viral layer, the Tupac and Biggie connection. This is the part where the internet stops being curious and starts being reckless. Because once those names enter the conversation, people don't just talk about safety, they talk about revenge. They talk about unfinished business. They talk about Brooklyn remembers. And then you start hearing the idea that Diddy could be a target because some people still believe he had involvement in those deaths. To be clear, these are long-running allegations and theories, and Diddy has denied involvement. There have been documentaries and interviews where different people make claims, And there have been official statements indicating he hasn't been considered a suspect in the Tupac investigation. But the internet rarely separates what was said from what was proven. It blends everything into one dramatic storyline. And that storyline is dangerous inside a prison context because prison doesn't run on court rulings. It runs on reputation. If a rumor catches inside a unit, whether true or false, it can create a real problem. People might think hurting you makes them a legend. People might think extorting you is easy money. People might think you're protected and want to challenge it. Even if nobody touches you, the tension itself can change your daily life. That's why the clip matters. Even without proof of a specific incident, it changes perception. Now, why would someone want that perception to change? Two reasons. One, to damage Diddy's image. The comfortable myth helps him. It makes him look like he's still controlling things. If you show him fearful, you break that spell. Two, to justify future moves. If the public believes he's in danger, then sudden transfers, isolation, tighter restrictions all feel reasonable. People accept it as protection, not punishment. And that brings us to another angle that competitor-style scripts love: the paper trail and old cases angle. Because the minute Tupac and Biggie enter the chat, people start bringing up names like Keef D, old interviews, alleged statements, and claims about money. They talk about checks, transactions, someone paid for this, someone ordered that. It's compelling storytelling because it feels like a conspiracy unraveling. But the smart move, if your goal is truth-based analysis with high retention, is to keep it grounded. Separate what's confirmed, what's claimed, and what's speculation. Now, you don't lose intensity by being precise. You gain credibility. And credibility is what keeps viewers trusting you for 20 minutes instead of clicking off after the first shocking line. So here's what we can say without crossing into fantasy. This footage, if authentic, suggests Diddy is not moving like a man who feels safe. It suggests a facility environment where he's cautious. That could be fear of inmates, fear of staff scrutiny, fear of internal politics, or fear of what's happening outside. Because remember, prison time isn't just about the walls. It's about what you hear. And Diddy's world outside is loud right now. Every headline, every documentary, every commentary video adds pressure. And that's where 50 Cent's role, real or rumored, matters. Because 50 isn't just a celebrity with opinions. He's an amplifier. He can take a small clip and turn it into a flood, and floods force systems to respond. Sometimes that response looks like protection. Sometimes it looks like control. But either way, it changes the day-to-day reality. So what happens after a clip like this goes viral? First, internal review. Facilities hate leaks. Second, movement changes. They minimize opportunities for more footage. Third, classification conversations. If administrators believe the inmate is at heightened risk, they might move him. If they believe the leak increases threat level, they might isolate him. Not because he deserves it, but because the facility wants stability. But here's the twist. Isolation can look like punishment even when it's called protection. It can limit access, movement, social time, and routines. And when a high-profile inmate goes from regular to restricted, the public reads it as confirmation that something is wrong. That creates more rumors. More rumors create more pressure, and the cycle feeds itself. That is the trap of a viral prison clip. It doesn't just reflect reality, it can reshape it. And this is where we need to zoom in on the most important question. Is this footage showing a single moment or a trend? Because a moment can be misread. A trend tells a story. If more clips appear, if more reports surface, if more sources start talking, then the prison reality narrative becomes harder to dismiss. But if this is the only clip, then it may have been released precisely because it's the most dramatic second someone could capture. And if that's the case, then the real story isn't what you saw in the hallway. The real story is why someone wanted you to see it. Now we're going to take the most intense claims circulating new footage leaks and break down how these leaks typically happen, what kinds of footage outlets actually obtain, and what the system does when it believes someone is intentionally shaping the public narrative from the outside. Because that's when the stakes climb from gossip to operational response. And once the system responds, it's no longer just the internet talking. It becomes a new reality. There's a detail people keep skipping because it's less dramatic than the theories. The word footage does not automatically mean proof. It can mean anything from a contraband phone clip to a recycled hallway recording to a stitched sequence of different moments. That doesn't mean it's fake. It means you have to understand how prison footage narratives get built. When someone says 50 Cent exposed Diddy's prison reality, what they're really saying is a clip appeared, and the public believes it came from a pipeline connected to someone who benefits from humiliation, pressure, or public control of the storyline. The exposure isn't only the video, it's the framing. And framing is powerful because the same clip can mean two opposite things depending on how it's introduced. He looks shaken could mean he's being threatened, or it could mean he's being escorted under heightened security. He's looking around could mean paranoia, or it could mean he's aware of cameras and wants to avoid giving anything to the internet. He's silent could mean fear, or it could mean legal advice. Say nothing, do nothing, feed nothing. Well, so the real story becomes, why now? Because timing is never random in these situations. High-profile cases move in waves. Documentaries drop. Interviews resurface. Old allegations get reposted with new captions. And then suddenly a prison clip appears that makes the person look less powerful. That is how public narratives shift one image at a time. If this clip really is recent, it likely appeared because somebody wanted to puncture the comfortable myth right when it was becoming accepted. The comfortable myth was spreading because it's the easiest story to believe. Celebrity plus money equals special treatment. But the system hates that story because it implies corruption. And opponents hate that story because it implies he's not suffering consequences. So both sides have incentive to disrupt it. One side to protect institutional credibility, the other side to satisfy public anger. And that's why prison reality content is always tricky. It becomes a battlefield for agendas. Now, about the most viral escalation, people saying Diddy could be in danger because of old hip-hop wounds. Here's the expert-level reality. Inside prison, people don't always act on truth. They act on reputation, opportunity, and the social economy of the unit. If a rumor says you're connected to something huge that can make you a target for attention alone, somebody doesn't need to believe it in their heart. They just need to believe it's useful. Useful for clout, useful for extortion, useful for status. But there's another angle that's even more important than revenge theories. Leverage. Because a rich, famous inmate is also seen as potential leverage. So not just money. Leverage in the sense of, if I can provoke a reaction, I can create a story. If I can get close, I can sell information. If I can capture a moment, I can trade it. That's where footage leaks often come from. Not deep conspiracies, just opportunism. And opportunism is constant. So what does the system do when opportunism becomes a public problem? It reduces access, it reduces movement, it reduces randomness. It turns the inmate into a controlled object. That is what reality often looks like for high-profile inmates. Less freedom, fewer interactions, more monitoring. And that reality can create exactly the expressions the internet labels as fear because it is stressful, because it is isolating, because it is humiliating. Because even if nobody touches you, you still feel trapped in a machine that has zero interest in your comfort. Now add public attention. Add the belief that a celebrity enemy is pushing content. Add the fear that more clips will surface. It becomes a cycle. The more viral it gets, the more the system locks down. The more the system locks down, the more the inmate looks shaken. The more the inmate looks shaken, the more viral it gets. That's why a 17-second clip can matter more than an hour-long interview. And if 50 Cent is involved in any way directly or indirectly, the power isn't physical. It's narrative power. It's the ability to force Diddy's image into a new shape. Not boss, not comfortable, not untouchable, but vulnerable. Because vulnerability is the one thing that changes how everyone talks. It changes how fans defend. It changes how critics attack. And it changes how the system handles risk. Now let's talk about what new footage leaks usually triggers next in the public space. People start searching for more. They start comparing angles. They start clipping older videos and passing them off as new. They start editing reactions into analysis. That's how a single clip turns into a whole ecosystem of content. And that ecosystem can drown out reality. It becomes impossible for casual viewers to tell what's current, what's old, what's edited, and what's imagined. So if your goal is to keep your audience locked in while staying credible, the move is to focus on what the clip changes, regardless of whether every rumor around it is true. And what it changes is simple. The public now believes Diddy's prison life is unstable. That belief alone creates pressure. Pressure triggers responses. Responses create new moments. New moments create new content. That's why this topic is a retention machine. Because the ending is never a clean ending. It's always what happens next. And here's what happens next, based on how these situations normally escalate. More sources appear. More claims get attached. Some will be true. Some will be exaggerated. Some will be fake. The audience will feel like they're watching a live unraveling. And the person at the center will have fewer and fewer ways to control the narrative because the narrative is now being built from the outside by people who don't need his permission. So the key question becomes, is this leak a one-off or the beginning of a campaign? If it's a one-off, the system clamps down and the story cools. If it's a campaign, you see a pattern, repeated footage drops, repeated captions, repeated humiliation angles, repeated insider claims. And once a pattern forms, the public stops asking, is it real? And starts asking, how bad is it? That shift is the real victory for anyone trying to expose, pressure, or destroy a public image. And right now, we're standing at that turning point. Because the clip already did what it needed to do. It made people doubt the comfortable story. It made people imagine fear. It made people talk about danger. And once danger enters the conversation, everything feels urgent. So here's where we land. Whether you love Diddy, hate him, or don't care, this footage has created a new reality in the public mind. A reality where the prison isn't a quiet place he's waiting things out. It's a live environment where perception can trigger real consequences. And the biggest question still hangs in the air, louder than the clip itself. If this much got out, what else is sitting on someone's phone right now? If you're still watching, drop a quick subscribe and turn on notifications. Because if another clip surfaces or if the system responds with a sudden move, you'll want the breakdown immediately.